The Good Samaritan. I mean, it's one of the most famous stories ever told, right? But what if the simple moral we all learned as kids is really just the trailer, and we've been missing the main feature this whole time? Okay, let's get into this. You really do. You probably heard it in Sunday school. It's so famous that the phrase Good Samaritan is just part of our everyday language. We use it all the time for anyone who helps a stranger out. And the story seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it? Okay, so a guy gets beaten up. The religious insiders, the priest and the Levite, they just walk on by. But then, the total outsider, the Samaritan, he's the one who stops and shows incredible compassion. So the moral is, be a good person. Help people out, especially when they're different from you. Simple, clean, end of story. But what if I told you that simple moral is just scratching the surface? In this explainer, we're going to watch the director's cut. We are going to peel back the layers, look at the hidden clues, and uncover the shocking twist that the original audience would have caught in a heartbeat. So first things first, we have to get this. Jesus didn't just tell this story out of the blue. It was a direct, super pointed answer right in the middle of a live theological debate with a religious expert. The context is everything here. Now, check this out. It's really interesting when you compare how the Gospels set this up. In Matthew and Mark, a lawyer asks Jesus a question, and Jesus just answers it. But look at Luke's version, our version. An expert in the law stands up specifically to test Jesus. And when Jesus flips the question back at him, the expert answers his own question correctly. The parable isn't about what to do. They both agree on that. It's about who. The expert, trying to justify himself, asks, "And who is my neighbor?" That question, that one little question, is the key that unlocks the whole thing. And this whole style of teaching, boiling the entire law down to one big idea, wasn't just a Jesus thing. The famous Rabbi Hillel, when someone challenged him to teach the whole Torah while standing on one foot, said this: "What is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. That is the whole Torah. The rest is commentary, go and study it." So Jesus is playing a familiar game here, giving the core principle that's meant to unlock all the details. Okay, so with that stage set, Jesus begins his story. And his choice of hero, well, it was absolutely intentional, and for the people listening, it was completely and utterly shocking. This is such a cool detail. In the original Greek text, when the hero finally shows up, the sentence begins with one single jarring word: Samaritan. It's not "a Samaritan came by," it's Samaritan, period. It's like he threw the word down like a gauntlet. It's meant to grab you by the collar and make you pay attention. And this choice was not random. Luke, the guy who wrote this gospel, has this running theme all about the broken, centuries-old relationship between Jews and Samaritans. I mean, look at this. Just one chapter before our story, a Samaritan village totally rejects Jesus. Then, a little later, out of 10 lepers Jesus heals, who's the only one who comes back to say thank you? A Samaritan. Luke is telling a very specific story about these two groups of people. So here's the point, and it is a huge one. The story isn't just about being kind to some random stranger. For the original audience, hearing Jew and Samaritan in the same story would have brought up this long, painful history between the divided kingdoms of Israel, Judah and Israel. This act of mercy isn't just charity. It's a powerful symbol of restoring a fractured nation, of bringing God's people back together. And this is where it gets even cooler, because the specific actions inside the parable, well, they're packed with symbolic meaning that we almost always miss today. A really common modern take on this story is that it pits compassion against religious law. Like the priest and the Levite were so hung up on their religious rules that they couldn't be kind. But that's a total misunderstanding. The command to love your neighbor is itself a direct quote from the Old Testament law, from the book of Leviticus. So the story isn't about ditching the law. It's about showing what the law really means. In fact, the parable fits perfectly into this long-running debate from the Old Testament itself about what true worship actually is. The prophet Hosea put it this way: God desires mercy, not sacrifice. And the Samaritan's next move shows us exactly what that looks like in action. So the Samaritan pours oil and wine on the man's wounds. Now, we just hear that as, ancient first aid. But in that culture, pouring out oil and wine was also exactly what you did to a sacrifice at the temple. You see what's happening? The Samaritan isn't just being kind. He's performing an act of true worship. He's treating this broken person with the same care and cost as an offering to God. True religion isn't happening in the temple. It's happening here, on this bloody roadside. And all of this, every single detail we've talked about, It all builds to the most profound layer of the story. This is the part that connects everything to the very heart of Luke's entire message. The turning point in the whole parable is this one Greek word, splaggenizomai. Now, it's usually translated as he had pity or he felt compassion, but that is way too weak. It literally means his bowels were moved. It's a deep, gut-wrenching physical compassion that forces you to act. It's not a feeling, it's a full body reaction. Now get ready for this, because this is the absolute kicker. Luke, the author, only uses this incredibly specific and powerful word 3 times. Just 3. First, when Jesus sees a widow whose only son has just died. Second, right here when the Samaritan sees the beaten man. And third, when the father in the parable of the prodigal son sees his lost boy coming home down the road. Do you see it? The connection is absolutely undeniable. Luke uses the exact same rare and powerful word to describe the gut-wrenching compassion of the Samaritan that he uses to describe the compassion of Jesus himself. The Samaritan isn't just a role model for us to follow. In this story, he is playing the part of Jesus. And that changes everything. It flips the whole moral of the story on his head. The point isn't just go and be a good person because you should. It's what this quote says. We do not help others because we ought to, but because we have received for ourselves from Jesus the life-changing compassion which we then share. We love because he first loved us. The story is a mirror. It's showing us who Jesus is. He's the true Good Samaritan who crosses the divide to rescue us when we are beaten and left for dead. But hey, before we wrap up, there's one last fantastic little detail hidden in the text. Think of it like a post-credit scene that clears up another common mix-up. So a lot of people try to connect the inn from this story to the inn in the Christmas story, right? The one where there was no room for Mary and Joseph. But look at this slide. In the original Greek, the words are completely different. The Samaritan takes the man to a pandokion. That's a commercial inn, a hotel for any and all travelers. But the word in the Christmas story is kataluma, which just means a guest room, probably in a relative's private house. So what does this all mean? It means the story of the Good Samaritan is so much richer, deeper, and way more challenging than we ever thought. It's not just a cute story that says, be nice. No, it's a story about restoring a broken nation, about what true worship looks like. And ultimately, it's a story that shows us who Jesus is. It leaves us with a totally different question. Not, who is my neighbor? But rather, will I accept the help of the true Good Samaritan and then go and do the same?